I was 3 years away from retirement and I had it all figured out. We had a deal on the table, a big one. The kind of deal that could set us up completely. My wife and I looked at each other and said, honey, this is it. 3 years and we're done. But what I didn't know at the time was that this was probably the moment everything started to go wrong. Because just weeks later, I got on a flight and I didn't come back. So stick around, let's go deeper in on this, I'll tell you all about it. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Moving Retirement. In our last video, I shared a bit about my journey, particularly how I found myself living and working between Canada and China. Today, I want to take you deeper into a pivotal chapter, one where retirement wasn't just a distant dream, but a very tangible plan. As I mentioned, I was constantly flying back and forth, and it was on one of these journeys between the airport and the airplane that fate, or perhaps just incredible coincidence, kept putting me in front of this woman. Literally 7 or 8 times. Finally, I worked up the courage and asked, can I have your number? She was heading to Canada to see her daughter, and I, ever the opportunist, offered to be her guide. That was the start of about a year ago of courting. So back and forth we went between China and Canada, and later that year we were married. So shortly after a previous business venture, a park project I talked about in the last video, Philippines, fell apart, my wife and I decided enough was enough. It was time to build something our own, something on our own. Having my Chinese wife now increased my confidence to move forward with a factory. I felt I had a confidant who could translate for me, help me negotiate contracts, and at the same time understand where the conversations were going, all behind my back. She could overhear them talking in Chinese, and she could protect my interests in all business matters. It placed me on the inside of the negotiations now, and that's something you have to be careful about as a foreigner in China, because you need somebody who can watch your back, because things are always happening all the time. For instance, before I was married, I had a young Chinese guy working for me as my executive assistant. He would do a lot what my wife is doing now, but in a different way. We were trying to make a deal on some promotional hats and so forth. He was negotiating in Chinese with that supplier. Later, he told me that that supplier spoke to him in Chinese and asked, hey, why are you helping the foreigner? You're Chinese. You should be helping us. Put the price up. And then he would probably pay my assistant a fee for helping him make the sale. It was funny. I said, so what did you say? He just turned around and he says, I told the guy, you don't pay my salary. The foreigner does. So I was happy that I had a little bit of backing there, but that was just a short little story. But that is where I'm going. Now I'm having my Chinese wife, 100% backing now, so my confidence level just skyrocketed, found a building, signed a 5-year lease, and we began setting up our factory. This wasn't just any factory though. It had a large open span building with a big courtyard and our office, and above our office was a 3-story dormitory for our workers. In China, under factory terms, you provide the employees a place to live and 2 meals a day. We had an industrial kitchen ready for that. The pace was hectic. We hired a manager, senior employees, and started sourcing equipment right away. We cleaned, we prepped, installed electrical lighting, air systems. It was all about speed, about getting to work and making money. Then the official Chinese opening ceremony, a party with all the staff, their families, a ribbon cutting, and then the fireworks. But what I call little sticks of dynamite. It was quite the spectacle. Everything got underway pretty smoothly. It was an exciting time. I built up a marketing business and set it up in the U.S., made a U.S. company. This way clients were able to pay directly to the U.S. company, so I could then transfer the money directly to our China accounts. Once the product was done, I would use my US company to import the units and products into the US, making it easier for the customer. It was a nice streamlined operation we had. In those early days, though, it seemed we were able to make more business in the South Asian Pacific Rim, namely Philippines. We did a little bit in Thailand, Malaysia, a little bit in Australia, a little bit in Korea. Our style of production was mainly one-on-one, one by one, because each part that we built provided us with about 6-7 weeks of work. The industry at that time was very welcoming and open, and things were moving well. We didn't have high volume orders, but we worked with high quality clients approaching some of the major resorts around Philippines and Southern Asia markets. We were able to sell the biggest parks in our lineup, which we were quite fortunate. Over the course of the year, we had some big major orders. We felt very confident and strong in having control of the quality, controlling the market, and controlling the customer, no middlemen. So we're quite happy. We did notice that our work with the employees was the weak link in the chain. A lot of them were very good, but I noticed you can't take your eyes off of them for too long because they tend to make decisions to save you money, which I talked about in the last video. But that was okay. My wife and I started mentioning our futures, thinking about retirement down the road, but not really going into a lot of detail yet. We're in our mid to upper 50s. 60 was basically coming soon in a few more years. Now, suddenly a major opportunity presented itself. This story is very important to the whole story. A company from New Zealand specializing in indoor party centers needed inflatables, and they needed them at scale. That excited us. The timing was very good, but presently we were functioning more as a heat welding industry for the water industry. My early years in the inflatable business were surrounded by indoor party inflatables, which are a sewn inflatable running on continuous blower. We had the sewing machines, the tables, cutting units, everything we needed, so we felt no problem. We could basically wind this side up of the business bigger and start focusing more on sewing inflatables, which was a good plan because it's kind of like two sides of the coin. We were focused on heat welding, but we knew deep down we needed to move forward on the sewing inflatables in order to complete that big picture for us. That could hopefully lead us into retirement because remember, we're pushing 60. So on that note, I jumped on a plane, headed down to Australia, where I was going to meet their Australian partner, as the New Zealand owner would be in Australia at that time. I showed them everything we do, and basically we impressed them, not just with our design ability, but with the fact that we owned our own factory, no middlemen. This was this could actually work moment. They laid out their plan, expansion plans, multiple locations, each needing 10 to 15 inflatables. So I quickly realized my factory alone couldn't handle it. The plan evolved. Expand our factory, add buildings, run night shifts, even outsource to partner factories. We were just supplying anymore. We were becoming the hub, the central point for their operation. I returned to Australia with a prototype order, designed and built 3 units and designed a park setup. This alone was worth $50,000, $60,000 per park. So I impressed them with our ideas, but it didn't stop there. I was also designing a full play center test setup for their entry into the US market. This is where it became multi-million-dollar potential. My wife and I recognized it immediately. They wanted to do in America what they had just done successfully in Australia and New Zealand. But let's get into the details of that design phase, because I wasn't just pulling ideas out of thin air. For that indoor party center model, I was calculating cubic feet, flow patterns, ergonomics for kids, and the structural integrity of those massive inflatables. It was complex engineering. I've got those photos to show you. I'll attach to the video. So this wasn't just a business plan, it was a vision. Every square inch had to be safe, profitable, and fun. My wife and I, we were approaching 60, and retirement for the first time wasn't just a theoretical concept. It was becoming very, very real. We weren't just talking about it anymore. We're planning, both agreed, the New Zealand project coming aboard, retirement, only 3 to 5 years, realistically, maybe 3. We agreed the goal was to clear, build a final runway, exit properly, and retire. Not just walk away. And that wasn't desperation. It was a smart, final push into retirement, a strategic push to secure our future. While that was happening, I had one last mission, a big trade show in UK. Hotels are booked, everything's confirmed, and off I went. It was a revelation. We walked away from that trade show with 32 solid, serious leads for aquaparks, water equipment. They weren't just business cards. It was 32 potential clients, each worth around $50,000, $100,000. We were on top of the world. The New Zealand project was solid. The UK leads were pouring in. I was ready to hop on the plane home. So I boarded that plane in UK feeling invincible. But 3 connections, 2 stops, thousands of miles later, something shifted. It didn't start with a fever. It started with feeling of losing my footing. I was dizzy. My body started failing me. I remember dragging my suitcase through the first stop, sitting on cold benches, resting every few minutes, using every ounce of energy to make it to the gate. I was getting weak. I boarded the second plane, basically tried to sleep. No, couldn't rest. When I landed for my next stop in China, it was a nightmare getting off the plane, going through the walkways, trying to head to customs. I didn't know what was happening. Was I high on sugar? Was it a virus? It didn't feel like a flu. I couldn't describe it. It was just getting really weak. So finally I got back to the factory. That's the last thing I remember. I basically opened my bedroom door, I collapsed towards the bed, and that didn't even work well. I missed the bed, fell flat on my back on the floor. But you know what? I just picked myself up, just felt half dead, fell asleep. So the plan was written, the factory's running, the deal was aligned, my wife and I were ready. We were finally looking at the finish line of a retirement down the road, success, a future exit to retirement. All I had to do was recover from this little bug I caught flying home. But I didn't know yet that that bug was a monster. And the finish line was about to move again. Let's go to the next video. Like and subscribe. Put your comments down there. I like to hear everything, but I've got a story to tell, and this story gets worse, gets bigger, and I don't know when I'm going to retire. So we'll get to that in the next video. Thank you. See you there. Bye-bye.